Hey Meno Warriors, welcome back to my channel. I am Kate and I host a weekly video with you every Monday about something related to menopause. Today I'm going to dive into why you might be struggling to lose belly fat. Now it's a subject I've covered quite a lot in the past, but I really want you to understand the difference between the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Essentially, they both form part of our autonomic nervous system. As we're going through perimenopause and our ovaries are getting closer towards coming into retirement, eventually we stop producing eggs. That is the main function of the ovaries, is to give us eggs so that we can be fertile. They also make hormones. We have on average about 400 eggs each, give or take a few. I've never counted mine. Just incidentally, I went through the menopause young. I was through the whole thing by about the age of 41. I'm now 53. I did struggle with the belly fat to begin with, the anxiety, the bad sleep, the hot flushes, but I wasn't following the system then that I follow now. And I really want to share with you how much power you have at your fingertips to help you navigate the menopause in a much less symptomatic way. There is so much doom and gloom out there. There are massive accounts of people who literally just share all their negative aspects, their negative experiences of the menopause. And I speak with some of them because they've come to me for help. And do they follow my advice? Not at all. And they still have the symptoms. I have nothing against HRT. If you feel that it's going to help you, you may be doing HRT and it's made a massive difference to you. I think that's brilliant. But lifestyle is going to support you whether you want to go the HRT route or whether you don't want to go the HRT route. The importance of today's video really is to help you understand that your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the side of your nervous system that helps to calm you down, is a very active role in all of this. I think we think that sympathetic nervous system, which is the thing that gets your heartbeat going, you know, if you're running up a hill, it's going to make your heart rate increase, it's going to be pumping the blood to your muscles, it's going to increase your breathing rate. That is known as the sympathetic nervous system. That is active. Well, we have this tendency to think that the parasympathetic nervous system is just passive. Eventually, our heart rate comes down, we start to breathe lighter. It's not. It's a very active system. And what we want to achieve with this, in order to help you lose belly fat more effectively, is for your parasympathetic nervous system to be strong and active. And by it being strong and active, it means that you will experience probably fewer menopausal symptoms. So just going back to the ovaries and what happens exactly when you run out of eggs. So the adrenal glands generally do the backup job of the ovaries. They still continue to pump out estrogen and progesterone, testosterone, but in smaller amounts, because of course, if we're not giving birth, we don't need such great quantities of hormones. But for the vast majority of us, our adrenal health is pants. It's shot because we're late to work. The train was late. There was traffic jams. So we're already in a state of you're late for your meeting. Then you grab a snack bar on the way in because you've not had time for breakfast because your sleep was so poor that you slept in a little bit later. The snack bar's full of rubbish and processed sugars, refined sugars. And then you get to lunchtime and you may not have time to eat lunch. So you just have a cup of coffee. Well, that's further spiking your anxiety response. You get to the end of the day, it's 3 o'clock. You've not even had a chance to have a decent drink of water yet. You know, that type of day is so typical for the vast majority of us. And it is not healthy. It plays havoc on your adrenal glands. I think we think when we're talking about stress, we're thinking about paying the bills or the major unforeseen things that happen, grief, walking down the dark alley, the dodgy alley on a dark night. But everything that we eat and drink that is not healthy for us is also stress. When we're not sleeping well, that is also stress. When you're doing the wrong kind of exercise, that is also stress. The amount of women I speak to who say, oh God, I've upped my exercise, I'm not eating as much just to try and get rid of this belly fat. And actually, all they're doing is making the situation worse. Now, it is worth saying that you can't really spot reduce belly fat. And you can't. When you lose belly fat, you will lose fat all over. However, we do have a tendency to create belly fat as we go through the menopause. One of the reasons for that is we have 4 times the amount of cortisol receptors around our belly than we do in any other part of the body. So cortisol is one of our stress hormones. As our estrogen levels naturally fall, our cortisol levels do tend to rise. Cortisol also stimulates insulin, which is our fat storing hormone. So, and also as estrogen and progesterone fall, estrogen tends to fall slower than progesterone. Well, progesterone has quite a calming influence on us. It sort of makes us feel a bit more warm and huggy. Well, that's why you might hear of estrogen dominance, because we've got in proportion more estrogen than progesterone. So we are lacking in relative amounts the feel-good hormone, the progesterone, the calming hormone. We've got more dominance of the estrogen, which is also falling, but we've got higher rates of cortisol, stress hormone, and also insulin, fat storing hormone. Not a good combination. So you might find that you actually also have a less resilience to stress. You're feeling more anxious. That's something that definitely used to happen to me. I'd wake up in the early hours and the anxiety just would sit on me like a heavy weight. It would make me feel sick. It would make me feel very antsy and very unstable and insecure. I'm a psychotherapist. I'm an anxiety specialist. So I was fortunate in the fact that I could see it for what it was. And I did deep breathing. In the early hours, I would just do some deep breathing exercises, really try and rationalize to myself that the silly things that I was worrying about weren't actually going to come to pass. And it made much more sense for me to actually have a good night's sleep so that I could wake up the next morning and deal with things more effectively. But it's very, very hard when you're caught in that sympathetic nervous system cycle. So you're constantly on high alert. The reason it's important to understand this element of the parasympathetic nervous system, the more relaxing side of things, is the fact that you might be thinking, I'm struggling with all these symptoms, I'm just going to go and get some more estrogen. Or I'm struggling with all these symptoms, I'll go and get some more testosterone. Not necessarily going to fix the cause. You need to actively work and strengthen your parasympathetic nervous system. So how do you do that? So I'm going to share that today. I always talk about exercise and strength training, but the right kind of exercise is incredibly important. So if you go out for regular walking, that's really, really good for you. Hiking, that's really, really good for you. If you're a runner, for instance, and you're thinking, I can't get rid of the belly fat, it's because sustained exercise over a long period of time increases the cortisol levels in your body. Everything happens in waves in our body, in evolution, in nature. We need to have the periods of higher blood pressure and higher breathing rates, but we also need to have the interludes when it all comes down, which is when the parasympathetic nervous system is activated. When you're consistently running for a long period of time, while you might love it, and I know, the runner's high, even though I'm not a very good runner myself, I know what you mean because I've experienced the runner's high myself. And for my mental health, it feels great afterwards. But it's not necessarily going to be good for your joints, particularly with menopause, because we do have more inflammation in our joints. It's good for helping keep your bones strong because it's gravity and the constant pounding on the land or the pavements is making your bones more dense. But there are more effective ways of going about it. So that's why high intensity interval training, although it can be pretty exhausting while you're actually in the exercise, your sympathetic nervous system speeding up your breathing rate, speeding up your pulse rate, but bringing up your blood pressure, but then you don't do anything again for a while. So it means that your parasympathetic nervous system kicks in and it brings down the breathing rate, brings down your pulse, brings down your blood pressure. That's why HIIT training is really, really good for you. But strength training is really important as you go through the menopause to keep the bones strong, to keep your muscles strong, to keep the tendons and the ligaments strong. When we work out, we release endorphins, which are happy hormones, into the body. So those help negate some of that, the increased cortisol aspect. So feeling more antsy, it helps to manage the anxiety. It helps improve our resilience to stress because we are getting stronger physically. And definitely when you're physically strong, you feel mentally stronger. You're able to manage those more stressful things that come and try and knock you off course. So strength training is incredibly important, but it's also really vital that when you do strength training that you're warming up. So the body's gradually getting into that zone of strength training. that you've got enough time in between reps so that your heart rate can come down, so that you can fully recover. And then you also cool down after your strength training exercises. Otherwise, you know, you're sort of, you've just finished your squats or whatever it is, which, because they're using large muscles of the body, they're boosting your metabolic rate. So they're increasing your ability to burn fat effectively, which is going to have a good overall impact on your body. But your heart rate's still going. Strength training can be quite a cardiovascular exercise in and of itself. So you really need to make sure that you're stretching and cooling down effectively after you've done your strength training, so that the parasympathetic nervous system is allowed to activate to bring you back into a state of balance. Other things that you can do to help relax are obviously things like meditation, yoga, reading, listening to nice music, watching a funny film. It's all about getting the right balance. If you're in adrenal fatigue, you won't want to do any kind of activity for a while. You need to allow your adrenals to completely recover, and that might mean no real activity for several days. It might mean just going to bed and staying in bed for the next 3 days so you can just keep sleeping, and obviously you need to eat and drink and go to the toilet, but beyond that, just rest and relax. That is obviously severe adrenal fatigue, but it does exist. I work with people who come to me and they say, I'm just absolutely exhausted. I feel completely emptied out. I'm fatigued, and they have adrenal fatigue. And it doesn't take long to start to get back into normal functioning, but you do need to allow yourself just to reset and adapt to a normal way of life again. Something that I take, and a lot of the ladies that I work with take, particularly beyond menopause, are adaptogen herbs. They help you, they adapt you to stress. So I have 8 of them every single day. They help you just become more resilient. As our cortisol rises, we don't want to be that sensitive to the stressors that are going on, and the adaptogen herbs just help you combat that. And as a result of that, they help you get rid of the belly fat as well. When your cortisol levels are more balanced, you're not going to be releasing the insulin so much. So it's going to help to keep your blood sugars more regulated as well. So again, you're not going to be triggering that fat storing hormone to such a degree. Choline is an essential nutrient that is not a vitamin, it's not a mineral, it's just something that our liver does produce naturally a little bit, so does estrogen. So when we're postmenopausal, we tend to have more of a risk of deficiency of choline. Choline is involved in healthy brain development, cell development. It's often grouped within the B vitamins because they help to support the nervous system and help to regulate that. Things that contain choline, you're probably getting enough in your diet in any case. Eggs are really, really good. A single egg contains about 25% of your daily requirement. Beef liver, if you like beef liver, chicken liver, cauliflower, strangely enough, cod salmon, broccoli, cod liver oil, those all contain sources of choline. So I think if you're eating a wide range of different, fishes, meats, vegetables, you're likely to get sufficient choline. I eat an egg pretty much every day, and one of the reasons I eat it is because of the choline content, but I just think they're just little they're protein powerhouses, and we need to make sure that we're eating more protein as we go through the menopause. So an egg for me is a really easy thing to choose. I always add veggies with it too. So if I have an egg on toast, I have it with an egg on toast with green beans or soya beans, or peppers, sliced up peppers, or sometimes like an omelette with peppers and onions and mushrooms and obviously egg. It's a really great way of making sure that you're getting a good dose of choline, but we also need to eat more veggies. So when you're menopausal, you really want to be focusing on plenty of protein and plenty of lean vegetables. We don't really need carbs at night. And when I talk about carbs, I'm automatically excluding the cookies, the cakes, the crap food that why was it ever even invented? But like when I talk about real food, we need carbs for energy. And yes, you might say, well, I follow the keto diet and it works really, really well for me. That's brilliant. If it works well for you, stick with it. Carbs have a really important place in the food that we eat. There are different variations of different types of eating. I don't really rule out anything except for the fake food, the highly addictive food. And as we go through the day, our need for carbs diminishes unless you're a shift worker and you work at night. So at the end of the day, really your plate should be made up of 25% lean protein and 75% of vegetables. I love potatoes, but I don't really need potatoes at the end of the day. So if I was going to have air fryer chips, potato chips, instead of that, I use turnip, or in the States, rutabaga. Instead of pasta, because we eat way more pasta and rice than we need to. I do substitute. I use either zoodles, so courgette, spiralized courgettes, or I have a spaghetti squash or cauliflower rice, which I bake in the oven, which makes it go really nutty and delicious, and it's way nicer. And for 1 cup of rice, you can eat 5 cups of cauliflower rice for the same amount of calories. Well, I'd rather have the cauliflower rice any day. I'm not a great fan of white rice anyway. It really bloats me out. It gives me wind. I always feel fatter the next day, probably because of the water content that I've absorbed. But I actually really enjoy cauliflower rice. I don't feel like I'm substituting with something poor. I feel like I'm really gaining. One of the nutritional systems that in my system we have access to, and she refers to JOMO rather than FOMO, so the joy of missing out. And for me, joy of missing out the pasta, joy of missing out the rice, I don't need it. I'd much rather have either zoodles or courgettes or spaghetti squash or the cauliflower rice, and I know it's supporting my health, plus it really makes a positive impact on my menopausal symptoms. Vitamin D is also incredibly important. A lot of us are deficient in it, particularly if you live in the northern latitudes. That is one supplement that I do have every single day. You might want to look at a vitamin B complex as well. Magnesium is really great. Now, I used to take magnesium glycinate before bed because there are various types of magnesium. I figured, doing quite a bit of research, that glycinate seemed to be the better one to help you sleep better. I didn't really notice that much difference. So now I take a magnesium complex, which contains all the various types of magnesium. Again, I'm not entirely sure it makes me sleep better, but my sleep has definitely improved over the last few months. I go through phases of not being able to sleep very well. It's normally because there's a huge amount of stress going on in my life at the time, and we're none of us are immune to dealing with things when things come up. But I do think magnesium is a good one to take as an extra supplement, because a lot of us don't get enough in our daily diet. I mean, I eat a lot of vegetables a day. I aim for about 8 portions a day. So I'm probably getting enough magnesium naturally. But for the majority of people who struggle to even eat 2 portions of veg, you're going to be low on your potassium. You're also going to be low on your magnesium. Magnesium really helps to calm us down. And when we're talking about activating the parasympathetic nervous system, so that relaxation response to help get rid of the belly fat, that is going to have a massive impact on you. And finally, just really prioritize your sleep. People say, oh God, it's so boring to go to bed early. Well, no, it's not really. Sleep is the cornerstone of good health. And I go to bed early, I get up early. I'm normally managing to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. As I've got older, I have gone to bed earlier because I'd like to get up with the dawn. I would much rather be up early and have a really productive day that ends a bit earlier than be a night owl. If you're a night owl, of course, you have to work with what suits you best. But I think certainly, even if you are a night owl, make sure that you are having enough time to go to sleep. Night owl is not an excuse if you're only managing 5 hours a night. I remember people used to say, well, Margaret Thatcher managed well on 4 hours a night. Well, yeah, she died of dementia. Poor sleep is known to have a really negative impact on your brain, but with Alzheimer's particularly, because when we're asleep, that's when our body recovers. Our brain actually flushes itself, which helps to get rid of those amyloid plaques that are indicative of Alzheimer's disease. So no, she probably didn't manage so well on 4 hours of sleep, unfortunately, towards the end, because it could have been a contributing factor, if not the major factor, for her development of Alzheimer's. Of course, I'm not really allowed to say that because there's no conclusive proof, but there is proof that our brain washes itself when we have sufficient deep sleep. And if you're not sleeping for long enough, your brain is not having the chance to wash itself long enough either. So be really mindful of that. It's up to us to take a really active approach to managing our stress more effectively. Belly fat is something I think most of us have combated or lived with for some point during our sort of perimenopausal, menopausal years. The great thing is that it doesn't have to stay. You can easily get rid of it. And if you're starving yourself and restricting calories, you are also creating stress in your body. You need to eat food to lose weight healthily. This is not about a quick fix. If you starve yourself, of course you're going to lose weight, but you won't lose weight healthily. You're going to impact all sorts of systems in your body, which you're really going to struggle with. When you start to eat again, your body's going to go into survival mode and it'll hang on to literally everything you put in. So you're probably going to weigh heavier afterwards once you get back to normal eating again. But the body's clever. If it thinks you're going to starve it, when you do start to eat food, it's just going to hang on to literally everything. When you can eat healthily and plentifully, I mean, the amount of stuff that I eat a huge amount every single day. No, I'm not completely skinny. I don't want to be completely skinny. I really want to have a healthy balance of just enjoying food. I always have 2 glasses of red wine in the evening. That is my little treat. I tend to avoid all the fake foods. In fact, I do avoid fake foods. I do focus on eating real foods. And I also strength train 5 to 6 times a week. But those strength training workouts, they warm me up. We've got good breaks in between each of the reps, so our heart rate comes down. We have a good cool down afterwards. And also my body's adapted to that. So if you're brand new to fitness, I would suggest maybe start with 3 or 4 workouts a week. If you want any help with that getting started, just message me, or there's a link in the description box below this where, or if you're watching this on Instagram, in my bio, and I'll be able to help you get started with something that suits you effectively. So it's very much about activating the parasympathetic response, so the relaxation response, in the way that works best for you. And I know some people will listen to this and think, oh, I'm just going to relax and get rid of the belly fat. It doesn't work either. You will get your body will become stressed if you just lie around all day, because we're not designed to. We're designed to be active. We're designed to eat real food, strangely. We're designed to move. We're designed to use our bodies in all sorts of different ways. The reason strength training is so important for us these days is because we're so sedentary. You know, we kind of have to force ourselves to do workouts with weights because we're not getting any kind of other activity otherwise. So, you know, in the good old days where we had to go and fish and hunt and run around and pick things up, and, you know, we were much more active, it wasn't such an issue because we were strong and lean and healthy anyway. But nowadays, we have to actively decide to move our bodies. And strength training, when you're going through the menopause, is vitally important so that you're keeping those strong, flexible bones. You don't want brittle bones, you want flexible bones. So if there's any risk of osteopenia, osteoporosis, strength training, gentle strength training is really going to help. I did a Menopause Monday a couple of weeks back on osteoarthritis, because there's a lot of evidence pointing to the fact now that it's an inflammatory based disorder or disease rather than a prototypical degenerative disorder. If it was a prototypical degenerative disorder, there's not an awful lot you can do about it, except for pain management and possibly a joint replacement. If it has an inflammatory base, well, we can reduce inflammation. And that is really empowering, because it means that if you have osteoarthritis or any of those inflammatory joint disorders, there's an awful lot that you can do to help improve your joint health. So I hope this has been helpful. Please give me a thumbs up if you found it helpful. Leave a comment below if there's any questions that you have. If you've also found that belly fat has become a problem for you, or indeed you've managed to shift your belly fat by stimulating and activating the parasympathetic nervous system, so that relaxation response, it is so, so, so important that we balance everything out. This day and age, with all the political unrest, with the wars going on around the world, with just complete lack of faith in the governments and just rising costs of living and everything else that's going on, we are becoming much more insular, we're becoming much more nationalistic, and it's not a very healthy way of living. So there's a lot of stress. Even if you think your life is fairly stress-free, we live in a stressy world, and it's got particularly stressy at the moment. So make sure that you are actively supporting your adrenal health with the right food, the right drink, sleep, the right kind of exercise, adaptogen herbs. If you want any information on those, just message me. I absolutely swear by them. Choline, vitamin D, vitamin B, magnesium. And that sounds a lot, but they're tiny little things that working together can create a massive impact on not only your belly fat, but also how you live through the menopause and beyond. Thank you for your company. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon.